Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 77 of the Stephen King podcast. And I'm here with my co-host as usual. Hello, Hans.
Hello.
Hans and all his fellow Europeans have finally gotten to see The Dark Tower as well. So if you've been wondering why we haven't put a review up yet, we wanted to wait till we both had seen it and the dust has sort of settled once the initial North American reaction had come and gone. And so we'll be looking at that. We've got a ton of news. We've also got reviews for almost the first season of The Mist and the first two episodes of Mr. Mercedes. So this is a high spoiler alert podcast. If you haven't seen any of these things, You might want to table this one for later because we're going to be spoiling stuff throughout this whole podcast. So you're forewarned.
Welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the DeathRoom.
It's time for the news. And Hans, what's our first item?
Yes, the first item is about the upcoming Sleeping Beauties. The book will be out in September 26th, to be exactly. And there's been some interesting about the UK version. They will do a collector's edition. They have done this with, I don't know exactly how many, but at least the latest books by Stephen King. And what they do is that it's W.H. Smith, which is a book chain in the UK, and they release the cover, and it's the same cover that the regular one have, but there's like a purple tone to it. So the color is in purple. And there's really nothing else that's different with this one except that it has that purple cover. So,
okay.
And if you're one of those collectors who want everything, you will definitely have your hands full this fall, because the regular edition of the hardcover copy of Sleeping Beauty released by Hodder and Stoughton will have, if you remove the dust jacket, on the front of the cover there, they will have 4 different animals printed. 1 tiger, 1 snake, 1 moth, and 1 fox. And again, that's just the difference on the cover. Nothing is different with the content of the book or anything like that. So it's just a small version of the cover. And if you want to have those, you're going to have to act fast, because it's only the first printing that will have all these 4 different. And for the remaining, they will choose one. They hasn't mentioned which one they will have, or if they might not have anyone. I'm not sure about that. But if you want to have all 4, you're going to have to look for first printings of the book.
Okay.
So is that something you will look for?
Well, it's in the UK, so no.
Would you have if it was the US edition?
No, I mean, it's a nice thing, a marketing tool, but I don't need to have 4 versions of a book just to get a different picture on the hardcover of the book. I guess I'm just a story guy, not a marketing guy.
Yeah. Well, I feel a little bit the same. I couldn't afford to buy everything, because if you're into that kind of collection, you probably collect all the different editions of the book and stuff like that. So it will be too costly for me personally, and actually I don't have room for a collection like that either. So
yeah,
it's best not to start. Then you just continue.
Yeah, but it does pique my interest as to what these animals represent in the story. But I guess I'll find that out when I get to read the book.
Yeah, it's the same. If you look at both the UK cover and the US cover, there are these animals are present there, so they presumably have some meaning for the story.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Up next is an update on the Sleeping Beauty's book tour.
Yeah.
Finally, all the venues have been announced, and the last one was, of course, the Sarasota, Florida venue, which will be at a library. I don't know how many people that library holds. It must be pretty big. The one that I'm going to, in Toronto, the Corner Hall, that one holds 1,300 people, and that sold out pretty quickly. So
Yeah, the last one, Sarasota, is actually quite different because the other 9, when you bought the tickets, they were released on a specific date and time, and you could go to a website and buy them. With the Sarasota thing is that they are released on August 25th. I think it is, if it's 8 o'clock, I'm not sure, so I have to look that up. And what you have to do is you have to send them an email saying you want to go, and the first 400 emails will have a ticket. So
wow.
That library only takes 400 person.
Mm-hmm.
So and you can only request 1 ticket per email. So let's say you want to go with your wife, both has to send your separate requests for the tickets.
Wow.
The good thing with this one is that since King's people have mentioned that at each of these venues there will be 400 pre-signed books, which means that everyone attending the Sarasota will get a signed copy of the book. So that's the upside on that event, because on the others, not everyone will get one. I think I'm going to New York, and I think that place takes like 700. So that's pretty good odds for getting a book signed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think at the one where I'm going, it's like going to be a 1 in 3 kind of odd. So
yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yep.
But yeah, boy, that Sarasota, Florida sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah, I think it will be very hard to get those tickets.
Yeah, or to get tickets for you and your spouse together.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe it's general seating, I don't know. If you just get a ticket, you get to sit wherever you want.
Yeah. But if you want to go to one of the signings, you better hurry up, because as today, 8 of the 10 signings are already sold out. One hasn't started selling yet, so that's probably why that's not sold out. That's the Sarasota one. I think that one will sell out really quick. And the only one that's not been sold out is in Chicago, and I don't really know why that they went on sale on June 27th, so I don't know why that one haven't sold out yet.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, but all the others are already sold out. So if you don't have tickets, you are in a bit of a problem to get there. And I read online that please be careful if you try to look elsewhere to buy the tickets, because most of these venues won't accept secondhand tickets. So that meaning you have to buy the ticket originally to get in, because if you buy it and sell it to someone else, that person won't get in. So, and I saw a couple of tickets for, I think it was around $800 or something like that. So
wow.
Really, really expensive, and it would be a shame if someone bought those tickets and couldn't use them. So be careful if you're looking for secondhand tickets, and really make sure you can use them.
Yeah, I mean we don't know how many tours he's going to be doing, so I imagine every time this happens that he does one, that this kind of thing is going to go on. So
yeah,
buyer beware. That's all we can say.
Exactly. And we can also mention that in our next podcast, Lou and I are going to talk about this tour thing. We have both seen King on stage live, and we're both going to this Sleeping Beauty tour. So we're going to try to put together some tips for you and some what you can expect, what we have been experienced and stuff like that. So be sure to check that out in the next podcast if you are going, or if you're just interested in what's going on this kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. I mean,
Yep.
it's a great time, and it'll be interesting to see how he interacts with his son.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is some really good news. We are getting a new Stephen King book next year as well.
All right.
And it's been released in a couple of segments. The first one is that King did a Q&A for, I think it was for The Dark Tower, and in that he mentioned that he has a book ready for the next year. And then in a different article, he mentioned that it will be called The Outsider. No release date has been set yet for it, but it's presumably next year though. And we don't know anything about it. So this could be the Holly Gibney book, or this could be something totally different. We don't know. But it's good to hear that there's a book coming. And I read I think that it was the same Q&A that he mentioned that he had problem finding title for a book. So that might means that he's working on yet another book as well, but that's my interpretation of the text. It wasn't really said like that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
At least one book next year, it looks like.
Yeah, I like your interpretation.
Yep.
More books is always better. Yeah, so The Outsider, I've seen some people speculating it might be Talisman 3, but I find that I don't think that's possible, because I don't believe him and Peter Straub have found the time to work together in the last year. My guess is it's the Holly Gibney book, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that if it was the Talisman, I think we would have heard that they were working on it.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that they could have kept it secret. I mean, they must have been working on it for at least half a year or something like that, and nothing came out of it. I have a hard time believing that. So I don't think it's the third Talisman book. Could be the Holly Gibney book, The Outsider. That could be a fitting title because she's somewhat of an outsider. Or it could be something totally different as well. We don't know.
Yep, for sure. Okay, next news is the exciting news that the runtime for the upcoming It movie has been released. And according to the BBFC, which is the British Board of Film Classification, the 2017 version of It clocks in at 135 minutes or 2 hours and 15 minutes. So that is probably a really good sign for this movie, and we'll get into that later when we talk about The Dark Tower, but mostly because we're only covering half the book. So if they do the sequel, we're looking at almost like 5 hours of It movie with the two movies put together. So that's great news. I was expecting around 220, so I'm pretty happy with this runtime, and I think that based on all the clips that we've seen, and I hope they don't show any more at this point, is that I think we're in for a really special treat with this movie.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. I don't know if you saw that those 4 minutes that they played before Annabelle in the movies leaked online.
Yeah,
I actually saw them by mistake because it popped up on my Facebook wall. So I thought it was just a teaser or something, but as I looked, I realized that it was those 4 minutes. But it's still it's very promising, and I can't see any downside with this movie. The only downside I can see now is that my expectations and my hopes for it is so high that it can't live up to being as great as I'm hoping and thinking it will be. But I think it will, so I don't think there will be any problem with this movie.
I think everybody's expectations are pretty high. Based on they've done a masterful job of the promoting of this movie from the clips that they've shown us, and I don't know who did the music for this movie, but it's just fantastic. It really builds up the suspense, and of course that laugh that you hear it really works quite well. So it looks like it's going to be a very special movie, and that will be fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on, next one is the Castle Rock TV show, going to be shown at Hulu, and they have started filming it. And based on what Hulu did with 11/22/63, I think they will do a great job with this one. And the casting has been, we have heard about the casting off and on for quite some time now. And the last one is that Scott Glenn, who you could have seen in The Leftover or The Defenders, if you've seen any of those shows, I haven't personally, has been cast as Alan Pangborn. So do you have any thoughts about that?
I am watching Leftovers. I have seen him in a couple of episodes in that series. He plays the father of one of the characters. A great show, by the way, for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. And it's finished. It's 3 seasons, so finished with a proper ending. So if there's a series that you're looking to binge watch, The Leftovers is a very interesting premise. Do you know the premise of that show, Hans?
Yeah, I think there's 2% of the world's population disappear or something like that.
Yeah. And now everybody left behind is dealing with trying to understand why, and the grief and the guilt as to why those certain people were chosen and other ones weren't. So it's an interesting show, and I'm just in the middle of watching The Defenders. And of course, if you watch Daredevil season 1 and 2, he plays Stick, the mentor of the Daredevil character in that show as well. So always good to get a veteran actor, and I think as Alan Pangborn, that's a very interesting pre-established character within the Stephen King universe. So I'm quite excited to see what they're going to be doing with this, and I really have no clue of what they're doing here. We've got such a different variety of characters, from Carrie to the character that's in jail to the girl that was on 2.5 Men as a real estate agent, I think she's playing, or something. So it's a very, very interesting. I guess each house they go to maybe has some sort of history or something. So we'll have to see.
Some of the comments about casting Scott Glenn has been that he's a bit too old to play Alan Pangborn. And I can agree with that if you refer to him as he was in, say, The Dark Half or Needful Things. But we don't know. This might be Alan Pangborn 30 years after those stories happened. So it could be that he is older and maybe not playing at the same time frame as those stories. So we don't know that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's actually a very good clue and a good analysis. I think that the series is going to be set like 30 years after those events that people are referring to.
Yeah.
All right. So we're keeping most of our comments about this particular franchise till we get to the movie review section of our podcast. But there is one note on the TV front that's interesting. And we really don't know what the future holds for the Dark Tower, whether or not there will be this reported TV series that they've always been saying that would be linked to the movie. But I'm hoping that it will happen. I still think that there's enough interest there. And the announcement is that Glenn Mazzara, who we know ran The Walking Dead, I believe, after Darabont left, has been tagged to be the showrunner for the Dark Tower TV series. So really don't know where this is standing right. Haven't seen any updates since this was posted on your site on August 4th, and I haven't heard anything new. But I'm not sure if it's going to happen based on what's happening with the movie in the box office. But, maybe they still feel, or another party might feel, that there's still something there that's worth trying to tackle, and we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I actually asked Glenn about this, and he couldn't say much more about it. So I think it might be up there in the air, waiting to see where the Dark Tower franchise
French fries?
where that one is going. So, but on the other hand, this TV show could, even if the movie doesn't get a follow-up, I mean, this TV show could live its own life and go on for a couple of seasons if that happens. So we'll see.
Yep.
Next up is kind of a strange news, actually. It came from Twitter, and there was a poster for a movie called Gone, and it was Richard Chismar from Cemetery Dance who posted that poster, and it's actually a movie done by his son, Billy, and his comment to it was, check the credits, and it says special appearance by Stephen King. So that, of course, got everybody curious, and for a short brief, the movie actually appeared on YouTube, and I actually found out, I don't know if you saw it, but I found it late one evening when I was just about to go to bed. So I just, how you can draw the marker and play it really quick through to look for Stephen King, and it appeared he was doing a voice cameo playing one of the kids' father at the end. So while I only got a very brief understanding of what the movie was about, that is what King did for it. So
okay,
and then it disappeared from YouTube. So I'm guessing that it wasn't really meant to be there. Maybe that they want to do something else with it. So it will probably show up somewhere soon.
So is this a Dollar Baby?
No, I don't think it's.
No?
As my understanding was that it's not based on anything King has written. It's a different story from anything he's written, and he's just doing a voice cameo.
Okay, all right. Yeah, unfortunately, I was out of town last weekend, so by the time this came and went, I'd missed it all. So never got a chance to see it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sure it will show up sooner or later.
Okay.
Yep.
Hope so.
Yep.
All right. Staying with TV, we've got news about Gerald's Game and 1922. They will both premiere at the Fantastic Fest in the annual Genre Cinema Fest in Austin, Texas. And that is in September 21st to 28th, out of the Austin's Alamo Drafthouse Theaters, which is a pretty famous venue for watching films. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We've gotten our questions answered about how they were going to handle the wardrobe issues in Gerald's Game, so that's good to know. And I believe, Hans, you have the next story talks about 1922.
I actually got an email from someone who had found a couple of photos from the film Fantastic Fest from 1922. And this is an interesting movie because this one we haven't heard anything about it. We heard that it was announced, and we heard that it was going to be on Netflix. But other than that, we haven't really heard anything about it. So it was very interesting to see these images. And when I was posting one of them on my Instagram, I tagged it with 1922, the movie. And when I did that, I thought, maybe I should check this tag and see if there's more photos. And there was a huge bunch of them behind the scenes photos and stuff that was posted there. So I did post some of them on the site as well and link to the Instagram photo if you want to check out those. And I think from the images, it looks really great.
Yeah, I get a real Green Mile vibe from it.
Yeah,
because it's from that era, right?
Yeah.
And Thomas Jane, I didn't even really hardly recognize him at first. He looks so different with that old style haircut, especially since he has such that weird haircut that he's been wearing in The Expanse, where half his head is shaved and he sort of lets a long flop of hair cover the other side of his face. So I didn't really recognize him at here. He looks kind of gaunt, and he really looks like a person from that era. So they've done a really good job with it.
Yep.
And I'm quite curious to see how this is going to turn out.
Yep. And we don't know when these are going to premiere on Netflix. I don't know, either they haven't gotten a release date yet, or they don't want to give it out before the film festival, maybe. But I guess it's somewhere October, November, probably. They're done. They will have premiered on the film festival, so there's really no meaning in keeping them longer than that. So my guess is October, maybe November. And I don't know exactly how it is if Netflix stuff premieres all over the world at the same time, or if they release it differently. I think most of the stuff goes online at the same time everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their worldwide release pattern is, but I would be surprised if they do staggered release dates. But no, I do think they do release things slightly different. Like I believe that I've seen things come on the U.S. Netflix before they came on the Canadian one. So
okay.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see.
Yep. Hopefully they will be there on there soon.
Yeah.
You know my book Shining in the Dark?
Oh yes.
The anthology with Stephen King's Blue Air Compressor. That book has been translated into Bulgarian.
Wow.
And will be released in Bulgaria on November 22nd. So if you're in Bulgaria, or if you can speak Bulgaria or read Bulgaria, you should check out that one. It's personally, I think it's really cool with all the acrylic letters. I never know that they can spell my name like that. So it's interesting.
Cool.
And when this podcast is out, there will be a photo of the book cover on the site, so you can head over there and check it out.
And you just reminded me, I had mentioned to you in email, I had a
Yes.
story to share with everyone,
Yeah,
and
you
I
did.
almost forgot about it till you just said that.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I was out of town last weekend, and I was in Calgary at the annual When the Words Collide, which is a writers' convention. And one of the guests of honors was a Canadian fantasy writer, Guy Gabriel Kay. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him, but you should check out his work. He's really quite a brilliant writer. He's had quite an interesting career, and before he started writing, he was actually retrained by the estate of J.R.R. Tolkien to assist in the editorial construction of the Silmarillion when it was published posthumously after Tolkien's death. So he had a very interesting start, and his first appearance was at a convention in 1984 in Ottawa, Canada, for the World Fantasy Convention. And if you Google that while I'm telling a story, you might find out where this story is going to be heading. He did a panel called The Reading That Never Was, and he had just published his first book, and was going to do a reading of it at this convention. But there was a issue with the publisher. There was something, the printers went on strike or something like that. So there was only like a handful of copies of his books available. And I don't even think he got a copy of the book in time for the convention. So he was basically sitting in this convention room with 4 other people showed up, and most of them were either his wife or his publicist or agent, and there was nobody there. So he was sitting in this room. They started to hear this loud laughing crowd laughing from a room across the hall from them, and then it would quiet down. Some time would pass, and then again this crowd would break out laughing, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So they eventually found out that Stephen King and Peter Straub were at that convention, and Peter Straub was doing a reading of The Talisman, which had just been released. And apparently, every time the audience laughed, it was because when Peter was reading, he was reading a section that included the character Wolfie. And every time he mentioned Wolfie's name, Stephen King would break out and do loud werewolf yowls. And and so the audience was just bursting out laughing about it. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story that a lot of King fans are aware of, and I just wanted to share that with you. So that was a very pleasant surprise. And Guy Gabriel Kay told a story much better than I did. He's very eloquent, but I thought it was a pretty good story.
Yeah, it would have been amazing to be in there. And did he go in there and listen to them, or did he find out afterwards that it was King and Straub?
I think he found out afterwards.
Too bad for
but
him. He
got his revenge 30 years later at another con, and they were doing an interview with him, and Peter Straub happened to be in the audience, and he told that story to everybody and pointed out that Peter Straub was one of the guilty parties, and Straub actually came up and apologized. So I thought that was a pretty funny story.
Yeah, that's great. Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around and pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift.
All right, so that is the news. And now it's time to move on to reviews. And now we're really going to get spoily, folks. So if you want to check out and come back to this later, now's the time to do it. So first up is The Mist.
Yes. And we spoke about this one last time. I think we came to episode like 5 or 6. Something like that.
5. Yeah, we've seen the first 4. Yep.
Yeah. So we were pretty unhappy with how the show was going then. It was very strange, quite some unmotivated stuff happening. And a lot of people gave up on the show, actually. Didn't want to follow it anymore. But I stuck in there and I forced Lou to do the same. We have to do this podcast, And I think it was in episode 8. It actually started to get a little interesting, I think, mainly because the Adrian character, he's been quite strange before, but now he appeared to be a full-fledged psychopath. You know me, I like those kind of people. So I think the show still has real problems, I think.
Agreed.
Some of the characters are still doing very strange things, moves forward very slowly, and I mean, if you look at the cop, Connor, he's very quick to accept what Natalie, the crazy woman priest, is saying, and he's even willing to kill his own son for something that, as far as we know now, he is innocent of, and he lets 2 people being eaten by rats. So I have a lot of problem with him accepting everything so quickly, and I also have a problem with Eve at the mall, where she's eyeballing this Jay kid who she thinks has raped her daughter. And of course, if that would happen, you would be really pissed. But I mean, they've pushed it a little bit too far. So as a viewer, you're almost like, well, stay away from him then and go somewhere else and don't hang around him, something like that. And so even though the last 2 episodes, episode 8 and 9, shows progress compared to the one before that, mainly because Adrian, I think. I didn't like him very much in the first episodes, but now he's actually my favorite character. So I think he's actually saving a lot of the show, I think, right now, by being the crazy one he is. But I think the main problem I have is that they are misusing the mist. I'm expecting to see some monsters. We don't get that. I expect to see other strange things in the mist. We don't see that. What we see is...
Well, got the 4 horsemen.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not strange. That's just freaking... I mean, there must have been a masquerade close by where they ran. I don't know. We get those strange things that we don't understand. I mean, like those 4 horsemen and the guy with a moth flow in his ear and he grow wings. I mean...
Yeah.
They're too far out, I think, and I'm starting to speculate that there is no mist. It's some gas that they have released from the military compounds.
Oh, that would really suck.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what's happening, they are having hallucination and stuff like that. That's more common with some kind of gas, I think. So we haven't seen the final yet, the last episode for this season, and when this episode is out on the air, you will probably have seen that already. But I think that in order for them to get a second season, I think that they have to make us care more about the character. They have to step up the mist and make it more interesting. And I think they need to shape up the characters. That's the main problem, I think.
Yeah, you've pretty well summed it up for me too. I think the show suffers from 2 problems. As you mentioned, the mist itself, they haven't established the ground rules. In the movie, if it was pretty simple. If you went outside, you were screwed.
Yeah.
Like in the TV show, there's this ambivalent idea that depending on the character's morality or personality or his convictions, the mist may or may not attack you. But it seems to be fluctuates just to service the story, when that rather than some sort of type of logic. So you have characters that go out into the mist that have committed murder and whatnot, and they're fine. And then other ones that haven't really done anything, and they get killed. And it's basically the old cliche that, well, these are the stars of the show, so therefore these characters cannot get killed. And The big thing is, besides not establishing proper ground rules for the Mist, is the characters. They are doing things that you don't buy. I mean, you like Adrian, but I had him pegged as the rapist from the first episode. I don't know if you did or not.
I did not.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So that was to me was totally telegraphed and coming. I knew it was going to happen, so that was no surprise to me. Anytime there's an intense character moment, the setup for it is so clunky, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is my perfect example. The episode where Kevin is in the hospital, and he goes into this room, and there's a person on a bed, and he sits on the other bed. He doesn't recognize that it's his brother. I mean, like, really? Like, first of all, if you walk into a room, you look at the person that's in the other bed, right?
Yeah.
But he just walks into the room and sits down and doesn't realize it's his brother. And it's just so clunky. You just don't buy what happens after that, because it's like they're not making characters act in a logical manner. And several of the characters have killed people where that hasn't been established that they would go to that lengths. So, like the mall manager, when he kills that woman because she found out about his food. Like, I just didn't buy that, and I just don't buy that people are just acting to service the story, and I think that's the biggest problem I have with the series. What else there? And like Adrian, I think actually the kid that's playing the character is doing a really good job. I think one of his best scenes is when he was practicing to tell the mother, Alex and Eve, and the daughter that their father was dead. I thought he did that. That scene was pretty cool. But I just didn't buy that he would shoot his stepfather like that. Like, there hasn't been enough creepy stuff established with him, and they were trying so hard to sell him as a gay character that, it was just so, to me, that's what made it so obvious, that trying to divert us from the possibility that he was the actual rapist. But I knew that from the first episode. So anything he was doing after that, I was just kind of waiting for him to reveal his true colors, and he did in I think it was the 8th episode, and then the 9th episode, he's at the mall. So it's just, I'm just not buying the characters. And if you don't buy the characters, then you don't buy the concept. And I really think back to the days when I was watching Lost, and they had the smoke monster, and you didn't really understand what it was doing either, but you bought into the characters, and the way they interacted with each other seemed very organic and natural, whereas here it feels very forced.
Yeah.
I don't buy the relationship between the druggie and the army guy. And then that last episode, when that army guy, that I don't know why the rest of the mall crowd hasn't questioned him about the fog and or the mist, he chokes that guy to death, and then at the episode he stands up and salutes him. I'm going like, what? Like, that doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, if he's your commanding officer, why would you do that? Like, it's these kind of things, and like, why did that one guy, the techie guy, finally, he's been kicked out of the mall, and he's looking for a way to get around, and he finally gets a ride with somebody, and he decides to stay behind just conveniently to help up the Kevin character, the father, who almost got shot. Like, it's just stuff like that. You just, like, it's characters just acting to service a story, and it really undermines any credibility. Though I will say that the last couple episodes have had a lot of pace, because all these characters that have been separated are coming towards this big climax in the 10th episode. So now we've got everybody at the mall. So from that perspective, it kept my interest a bit more than the earlier episodes. And then, like you said, like Natalie, the crazy woman, I just don't get her. There's no logic. I mean, yeah, she's crazy, so why would there be logic, I guess you could say. But I just don't understand why she would be killing all these, like, say, okay, we're leaving the church, so anybody that doesn't come with us, we're going to burn them alive. Like, why?
Yeah. Like,
she just gives us, like, through death comes life kind of nonsense. But that's not, without a peek into her mindset or really tying it clearly into the mist. It's just random violence for the sake of random violence. Like, it's, this is a horror show, so we better kill off a bunch of people, or people are going to say that show is kind of lame. So like, if you have a scale of shows, like Under the Dome at the left is one of the worst shows that we've seen, all the way over to the right, where I would still put the Dead Zone TV series is probably the best TV show. You could argue maybe 11/22/63 are pretty close. And then slightly below that would be The Haven. Then I would say The Mist is halfway between Under the Dome and those better shows, but probably leaning a little more towards Under the Dome, but not quite as bad, because it kept its story confined to the concepts of the short story. But I'm hoping, I don't know if there's still a chance at the end of this season that they might actually set up where a bunch of people get in a vehicle together and drive out of town and pick up the novella ending. So I'm still holding on to that slim hope that they might actually pick up on the breadcrumbs that King left from the novella and get out of that town and start trying to find a a safe place or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is that there are probably too many main characters to get in.
Well, and I think
car,
that's another problem. Yeah, well, they can have a convoy then.
Yeah.
But I think that's another problem with the show. There's too many characters as well.
Yeah.
I think they really need to slim the herd down, so to speak.
Yeah, and the episode you mentioned where he meets his brother, that one is by far the worst episode of them all, I think. I was so angry when I watched it because, I mean, he's risking his life to save his brother. That's okay. He talks to the doctor. How can we save him? Oh, you need to go to that wing, do that, whatever they need to do to remove
surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can't do it anywhere else because the equipment is there and the mist is there. Okay. And he puts on headphones and rushes with his brother there and have radio contact with the doctor to guide him to what is heroism he's gonna do. And while he's there, what he do is he put some ointment on him, gives him a shot, and pull the thing out. Why would he have to do that there?
Sticks a couple of gauzes inside him and staples him up. I mean, like, really? Like, if that's gonna, the guy's gonna survive that kind of an operation? Like, I'm sorry, he'd be bleeding so badly that he was never gonna survive to begin with. But
yeah, and I mean, why couldn't he just run there, pick those things up, and run back and let the doctor do it? I mean, he didn't have to do it there, and it was so crazy. And I think the only reason they did that, I think, was to have the character Kevin kill someone
and give the backstory of his wife's history as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
right?
they could have done that anyway. He could have remembered that while he was running to get stuff and things like that. He didn't have to bring his brother back there.
No.
It's totally crazy.
Yeah, well, his brother was just a sounding board for them to show the wife's background.
Yeah, but I mean, it was missed there. They could have given him his brother in the hallucination.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other character that just is not working, the daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, if she's just been raped, there's no way that she's going to start dating this guy. Like, she's going to be wrecked for years.
Yeah.
You just don't get over something like that and, now I'm going to start dating this guy, like going roller skating and kissing. And it's just so ridiculous, that demeaning to that character. She's not a real character. Like, that is another perfect example of a character servicing the story as opposed to the other way around. Because there's no way that girl would be up for any kind of relationship stuff that they were showing in the show. So they're just not respecting the characters properly when they're telling this series. And I'm sorry for people out there who like the show and are watching it and enjoying it, but I can't just say that I like something because they slap a Stephen King label on it. And the hallmark of Stephen King stories are strong, believable characters that are acting in a believable way in crazy circumstances. And in this show, it's just another one of those shows, a perfect example of characters acting to service a story. You don't know, one episode a character could be a saint and the next he could be a killer, and you kind of go, you just don't care because you don't believe in anything they're doing. So it's kind of, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I agree with what you said as well, that while it is better than Under the Dome, definitely, I would definitely watch this more than Under the Dome. It's not up there with the good ones, definitely.
No.
But it will be interesting to see, as you say, now they have been more interesting the last two episodes, and they have a chance of making the last one quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, I think that it's not impossible that they get a second season for it. I mean, Under the Dome ran for 3 seasons, so nothing is impossible. But
but Under the Dome had crazy viewership numbers for the first season. I don't know how well this show is doing, but
no, I don't know how big Spike is. If it's a big channel that a lot of people have or whatever, but well, I guess we'll have to wait and see both the season finale and if there will be more. Yeah,
and I think that they've set it up that they basically can't stay at the mall either, right? Because the mall's almost out of food and that. So I'm hoping that they're going to go on some sort of like a road trip, but we'll have to see. Like you said, I don't even know if it's going to get a second season.
No.
But right now, I'm sorry for anybody that's involved with the show. It's just not working. It's not working for me.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the next TV show, which is Mr. Mercedes. 2 episodes have run so far when we are recording this one. And I don't know about you, but I am really, really enjoying this one. The first scenes that is in the show, that I think the first 8 minutes is basically from the book, where we get to see these people at the job fair and we see the Mercedes running them over. And I must admit, I got the same feeling that I got when I read the book there, that we get to know these people. We have the kind man who helps this young mother with her child. We have the mean to her, and then wham, the car came. And I was surprised to see how graphical it was.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect them to be showing as much as they did. And really now with all these things that are very similar happening all over Europe, I think that they would have pulled back a bit from it, but they didn't. And it's like the showrunner Jack Bender is saying that it's very important to show what kind of a character Brady is, but on the other hand, they're not glorifying it. And I think they succeeded very well. And I am impressed by the script, by the look of it, by the characters, by the actors. I really don't have anything to complain about it on this one. And personally, I think this could definitely be the best TV show made of King's work.
I think it has the potential definitely to get there. My experience has been a little bit different than yours. I do agree with a lot of what you said. I do think the show looks really fantastic. I think it's really well put together. The cast is great. The first 8 minutes of the first episode are so strong, and you really, like you said, get to really like those two characters that are in the lineup, that after that sequence is done, I found the rest of the episode flat. And I know they're doing a lot of setup work, introducing you to the Bill Hodges character and his police buddy and how he's living his life, and you also meet Brady and his mother and all that. But if it wasn't for the character that doesn't even exist in the book, is the next door neighbor played by Holland Taylor from 2.5 Men, who's so straight in his face about what she wants from him, and that I thought the rest of the first episode was pretty flat. Kind of like, okay, let's do something with this story. You set up this great premise, but there's a lot of groundwork being laid here. I'm not saying it was done badly, but I just think that the first 8 minutes were at such a high level that after that it was a little bit underwhelming. Fortunately, the second episode picked up quite a bit, and I do believe as we get into more episodes that it will turn out to be one of the best shows. But I was so blown away by the first 8 minutes that the rest of the first episode felt a little flat to me. It's just saved by Holland Taylor being so funny as his next door neighbor. And there's that annoying manager character from the electronics store in the first 2 episodes. Like, that guy was hardly in the book. And I thought every time that guy came on screen, I just felt like fast forwarding, because I just didn't really care about anything that he was saying or doing with those 2 characters. So hopefully now that he's had his accident, he's out of the way, that they can actually start to focus on Brady a bit more. I do really like the way Harry Treadaway is playing that character. And of course, Brendan Gleeson as Bill Hodges. He's good, but he hasn't been proactive enough yet in the story. He's just feeling sorry for himself. He's just sort of turning around in the second episode. So I'm hoping to see more of the way he was when he was leaving the police station and was pissed off at his buddy, his ex-cop buddy, and he was swearing at everybody and almost had an accident and all that kind of stuff. That's the character I want to, that kind of active character that's out there. That's the kind of character I want to see. So I still have a lot of hope for the series. And like with every series, won't make a final verdict till the first 4 episodes are going. And I think that they've laid the groundwork now in these first 2 episodes. Fantastic first 8 minutes, and second episode started to pick up the momentum. So I'm just hoping going forward that it's going to continue to build on that, and the tension is going to rise.
Yeah, well, I didn't find that managers especially annoying. I thought they worked pretty good together, those Brady and Lou and the manager. And one other character that I really liked is Brady's mother, Deborah, played by Kelly Lynch. I think she's pretty creepy. Yeah, I think she's actually the one that I think she's the best one in the entire series, because she has a really challenging character to play as well. So she really gets to act out and be a really uncomfortable person.
Yeah, she's definitely uncomfortable to watch.
yeah, and I mean, to get to be, I don't know her personally, but I assume she's not like that in real life. And to be able to be so believable in that character, I think she's doing a fantastic job. And I think that the other characters are also all very good. And yeah, I'm really happy with this show personally. I've seen a couple of more episodes than just the first 2. I won't say what they're about or what happens, but yeah, I'm happy with it. And it's definitely my favorite TV show based on the King work.
No, that's good. I'm really looking forward to when Holly comes onto the show because she hasn't been in the first 2 episodes yet. I'm assuming she's either going to be in the next one or the fourth one, so we'll have to see. But yeah, it's definitely looking potentially to be a really strong series. But 2 episodes in, it's hard to say for sure for me yet.
Yeah, definitely. And you should definitely go by the 4-episode rule because it could be, it could be good and drop, and it could be bad and lift off, so you never know. But personally, I really like this one. Okay, so anything else to add to Mr. Mercedes?
Sometimes the computer graphics sequences are a little annoying, but I guess they're supposed to be. So, but no, other than that, yeah, I can't complain.
Okay, so should we move on to the big review
yes,
this time?
Here we go with the Dark Tower movie. And I got to see it first, and I've had much more time to ruminate on it than you have, Hans. So you're coming into it a little more hot, I guess we could say.
Yeah, I saw it this Wednesday, so it's just 4 days since I saw it.
Yeah, I've seen it almost 2 weeks ago. So I saw it like the Thursday, the 3rd. So this is like, 14 days later for me. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. I know, or no, you actually want me to go first, don't you? Because you already put your thoughts up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So... is this the Dark Tower movie that I wanted? No. Is it the train wreck that a lot of critics have made it out to be? Absolutely not. But it's definitely not the movie that this franchise needs. And I don't know if it's going to kill the TV series that we mentioned about in the news early up. But the expectations that I've had for this movie, and I think for a lot of people too, is when you're looking at a franchise like this that's so vast, or has such a large book series, 8 books or 7 if you don't include the additional Wind Through the Keyhole, that you have to look elsewhere in the cinematic universe as to what other series was this well revered and got the treatment that it deserved. And then of course we have to go to Lord of the Rings. So you're looking at that, and your expectation coming into this is that you're going to get like a 2.5 hour, maybe a 3-hour movie, because this is such a dense, deep, wide mythology that when you get a 90-minute Cliff Notes version of the movie, it's going to be disappointing to everybody, no matter how you slice it. I don't have any trouble with the cast. I thought Idris Elba was fantastic. I just don't think that the way the story was structured, that he was used to his fullest extent, because the story really was from Jake's point of view. And I didn't mind Matthew McConaughey, but he's got like that mist problem in that the movie never established the rules of how powerful he is and why Roland is impervious to his magic, and nobody else seems to be. So there's a lot of corners cut in this movie that strip out a lot of the character of the Dark Tower franchise and just makes this feel like a generic fantasy movie when there's so much more there that could have been done with. And we've heard by this time that early cuts didn't go well. I have no way of knowing for sure, but I think the indicators are pretty strong that the director was out of his league a little bit with this project. I think it was just a bit too big for him to handle, because it sounds like they did a lot of recuts, and there's scenes in the trailer, I'm thinking specifically of the Man in Black walking up through the snow, that's not in the movie. And in a 90-minute movie, why was a scene like that cut? Unless they couldn't find out a way when they re-edited it to fit that scene in. So there's a lot of, I understand the movie company, they partnered with Sony. They did approach these movies, they try to make them, but with a more modest scale. And they had success with something like Baby Driver, which I saw and actually I thought was a really good movie. But I think this approach just doesn't work for something this big. And I think it's like, could you imagine Fellowship of the Ring being done on a $60 million budget? It's just not possible. And if you're going to pull from 2 books like they did here, I understand the approach, and maybe with a different creative team it could have worked, but I just don't think they had the proper handle on this. And I wanted, I think the only moment that really emotionally resonated with for me was the scene where Roland was showing Jake how to shoot with the gun and reciting the Gunslinger's Creed to him. That felt like the Dark Tower, because that was a very specific thing that you don't hear or see in other fantasy works. Like, that's a very specific thing unique to the Dark Tower series, and there wasn't enough of those kind of moments in the series. So I have more to say, but I need to take a break because I'm getting dry mouth. So Hans, why don't you tell me or tell us, expand upon your written review?
Yes. Well, I didn't mind that the plot of the movie didn't follow the books, because we know that this was a continuation, and I think that was a good thing, because, as I've said before, I don't think they can film this 7 books and be true to the books. So I think that was a good idea to make it a continuation, because that could give them some freedom to adopt it as was possible. But I think that what they did was that they did a movie that was very rushed. They didn't establish who was who and why was why. You didn't really understand what was happening. I mean, you understood what was happening, but it was very, very rushed, and everything went very fast. And I think that they screwed up. Like, I mean, we know that when Jake is trying to get Roland, that is really a struggle for him. I mean, here he got the address from the internet. He found the house immediately. He punched in the right code the first try, and I mean I have more trouble going by train here in Sweden from one city to another. So you didn't really feel his frustration, and I think they failed in making us care about his destiny. I mean, everything went so quick and so easy for him. I mean, when he ran away from the Tahins, and you didn't really feel that he was in much trouble, because it solved itself pretty easy for him. So I wound up, even though I think that Tom Taylor is the one who pulls off his character the best in the movie, I really didn't care about Jake. I mean, I didn't care much about him. And I think when it comes to Roland, Idris Elba is a good actor. There's no arguing about that. But I think him and the combination of what they did to Roland in the script result in this is not the gunslinger for me. I didn't feel that he was the gunslinger. And Matthew McConaughey was too flat. I mean, you didn't feel his evil. I didn't find him very evil. Of course, he told people to stop breathing and stuff like that. But it was like they had done a cardboard picture of him that was moving around in the movie. He didn't have any depth, I think. And his powers, when he fought with Roland and he catch his bullet in his hand and throw them back, and I just thought that it looked really lame. I think I guess they were going for coolness, but I didn't think that it looked any way that they wanted to. So and I have to say that the portals they did, I mean, it was more like a Star Trek movie to me. I mean, when they were in the village, they even have some seats there that they can sit and wait for the time when they should travel. Again, I mean, that's like a train station. And this was portal that was supposed to be not something that they used on a regular basis. So I thought that they were rather meaningless. And I think that the movie was if you look at the movie and definitely the cutting, I think that it felt sloppy done, especially at the end, the last. You could really see that film, that scene was filmed quite some time after the rest of the movie, because Jake all of a sudden looked like a teenager, and Roland's hair was longer. I mean, how hard is it to give him his head a shave and get the hair in the same length as it's been in the rest of the movie? And I get the feeling that they didn't really care. They just, oh, God damn it, we got to have this movie out. Just throw something in there and be done with it. So that's a disappointment. And also, this was supposed to be the start of a franchise, and they didn't even leave us with a cliffhanger. I mean, they went into a restaurant and some light was flickering, and that was it. I read an early version of the script where they actually, when Jake is sitting in the chair, they are sucking his brainwaves out, and Roland is on the other side of the portal. He actually shoots Jake through the portal and killing him. And I think, if I remember correctly, that Jake said something like, "Oh, there's other worlds than these." That would have been a setup for the next movie where Jake has to go back, and then we could maybe have gotten a little bit of his frustration to going back again, and so on and so on. So I think that this was sloppy work, I think. And I was very disappointed when I came out from the theater. And even though it's not been that long, and I haven't processed it fully yet, I feel very disappointed. And I think that if they continue, which I personally doubt that there will be a second movie. I get the feeling that this one is dead at the cinema.
Yeah.
But if they were to do it, I would definitely see it. But I think that I would have a hard time being excited about it like I was for this movie, because I really, really wanted this to be a good movie. And I was hoping, and I tried to keep my expectation low going in, not hoping for too much, and trying to have an open mind and everything like that, so it would be a good experience. But they failed me big time. And my hope now for this, and as I see it, the only way to move forward with this one is that you do what Hollywood is doing best. They forget that this movie ever was done. They start over. They start with a TV show, start with Wizard and Glass, filming that, moving up all the way to the 7 book and doing a TV show on HBO or something like that. I think that could work. Start from scratch, throw McConaughey, throw Elba, throw them all out, start over again. Fresh script, everything could happen, could work. Other than that, I think it's dead now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way another movie's going to be made like with this box office reports coming out and that it's rating. You know, I was like you, I was really hoping, like I was on board with the way they were approaching in that. I just don't think they executed what they had, and I think the sloppy feel that they got is because whatever response they got in the test screenings, they basically recut this movie. I think there was reports just before the movie came out that the producers of the movie sat in the editing room with the director and recut the movie. So, you know, that cannot be a good sign. So it's actually, to me, hearing all the behind the scenes drama, it's actually, to me, it's kind of amazing how well the movie hung together as it did, if it wasn't as much trouble as they said it was. But obviously they cut it down to bare bones to get it to where it was, and it just lacks that. Like, there's moments in Lord of the Rings, like if you see the Shire for the first time, or you see Gandalf, or they go to Rivendell, or Frodo gets his sword and stuff like that. Like those moments, you never got those awe moments in this movie, and that's the thing that's missing the most. And I wanted the music to be treated the same way. Like in Lord of the Rings, it's a leitmotif kind of structure where every character, every place has its own theme music, and you don't get that here. Like, I mean, Junkie XL did some good work on Mad Max Fury Road, which was an action movie, which fits that. And I actually don't mind his track for the Creed sequence where they're training with the guns. I didn't mind that either. And Roland's heroic theme music is okay, but the rest of it was just generic action movie stuff that you would see in any Terminator or B science fiction movie. So I think the lesson here is for studios, whoever takes this project on, is you can't do this on the cheap. Like, if you're going to commit to this work, you really have to commit to it. And this is kind of like a Lord of the Rings intensive kind of effort to bring this to give it the proper treatment. Even if they do it on TV, I would think that they should start with the first book and just do like a condensed version, maybe bookend, like if they have 10 episodes, like do the first 4 and the last, or the first 2 and the last 2 with Roland from the Gunslinger, and in the middle do the flashback when he's training with Gort and his other earlier quartet guys. And that, to me, would be the first season of this series, because that doesn't require a lot of special effects. I mean, you have to do some set work for the showing Roland training and stuff like that. And I think maybe rebooting with new cast would probably be a good idea too. But I would still go with Elba. But I think Jake, by the time they get to that point, like Jake's, like the kid grew from like being, I think, just below Elba's shoulders to almost standing head to shoulders with the guy over the summer, right? So yeah. Unfortunately, if studios are really hungry for material, this is a franchise it's tailor-made for a major studio to take on, because it's already got the backstory. Like, you want prequels, that you've got it. You've got his training sequences. You've got the Wizard and Glass when he's a teenager. Like, it's all there, but you have to be willing to put the money down. And especially in the cinema world, where movie-going audiences are expecting the same craftsmanship and budgets that the Marvel and DC superhero movies are getting. Like, you know, 150, $200 million. It's a lot of money, and I know it's a big gamble, but those expectations have been set by other projects, and you can't come in and do a half-assed job and expect people to respond to it in the same way when they're used to seeing like an Avengers movie when you get 18 different superheroes fighting in a sequence at an airport or something like that. That's the kind of scale you have to, that's the standard. Like, that's the bar that's been set now in the cinema. And if you don't want to go that big, then go TV and do it that way. But yeah, it's like you can't just do a $60 million movie and try to move all that source material through it without it suffering. And a 90-minute cut is the sure sign that there was the way the movie was shot, that there was big problems there, because there's no way this movie should have been under 2 hours. And I would think 2.5 would have been bare minimum, really, to get a fleshed out scene, because like the character that suffers the most for me in the movie is Idris Elba as Roland, because you never get to see him really reflecting or getting to lock into his conflict between like where he is now that he just wants revenge versus going for the Dark Tower. Like even at the end when he says to Jake, he says, "I can't stay here," he doesn't say why. Like he just like, "I have to go." And he says, you know, he could have at least said, "We have to get to, I have to get to the tower," or something. Like he doesn't even say that. Like, you know, like it's so rushed. Like, roller coasters are great, but they only last 2.5 minutes. You can't have a movie that's kind of driving at such a high speed all the time if you don't slow down and let the audience and the characters reflect on what happened previously before they jump to the next set piece. And so there's, like you, I really tried to remain positive with this, and I think at the worst, this movie is just kind of meh. I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's kind of meh. Like, it's nothing, like I don't hate it, but I don't like it. It's just really a middle of the road kind of movie for me that just was. As a fan, I probably would give it a 10% higher rating than a non-fan, or they might even rate it like 20-30% lower than I would. But I think it's like roughly a 60% kind of movie. But at the end of it, you just walk out and it's just like whatever kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think that what it really didn't have any Dark Tower feeling in it.
Exactly.
I mean, we talked about that earlier, that even though casting and everything like that, different turnaround and continuation of the books, the most important thing was to keep Dark Tower feeling and to have the character act in the Dark Tower feeling. And that's totally lost in this movie. So I think that's one of the biggest problems with it.
Yeah.
It's like my friend said when we had seen the movie, he said, "This movie has forgotten the face of its father." And I think that's a very, very good comment that says it all. I mean, the most exciting thing in the movie was when Roland reloaded his gun. I think that was cool done when he popped in those bullets, and maybe they overdid it a little bit. He had like 10 different ways to load his gun. Yeah. But I think that when he spun it and just one bullet after the other, I think that looked pretty cool. So, but what I'm looking forward with this one is, and hoping for the DVD and Blu-ray release, that they will jam that full pack with deleted scenes so we can see what they cut out of it and maybe get a little understanding on why they did it and how the movie could have been.
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting.
I doubt if we'll ever see it, though.
Yeah, probably
There
not.
might be like 3 or 4 deleted scenes to say, okay, this is kind of interesting. But to see the first rough cut of it, which is what I really want to see, because I understand if you're a non-fan of the book, audiences couldn't understand what was going on. But if that first cut was like 2 hours, and as a fan, I would love to see what was in there, because there was obviously a lot left on the cutting room floor. But it was just so crammed. Like, you can't introduce a character like Roland's father and then kill him within like 2 minutes without getting to know the guy at all, right? Like, it's just like, he just don't breathe and he falls over, and then it's like, what? Wait, he's gone already? Like, we didn't even get to know the guy. Like, you can't make a movie like that and expect our audiences to react. It's just way too rushed.
Yeah, and we know that about deleted scene. We know the ending was changed because they obviously filmed a new ending, even though it might not have been the one that I read about. It could have been something else. But it was definitely a different ending since they shot another one. And we know that there was a scene when Roland and Sire was fighting.
Yeah,
we
that was hardly in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he jumped off the bus and was run down by a car, and that was it. So he was disposed of very quickly.
Yeah.
So that scene is definitely done. So yeah, and one thing that I was a bit surprised of, before you see the movie, you don't really expect that it's going to be Jake that has the main character.
Yeah.
That is the main character, because he's not on any posters and anything like that.
Yeah,
So I think that
that's a That's a marketing thing too, right?
Yeah, but I think, I mean, we who know the book and the books and have read it, we know that. I mean, it doesn't really matter with what characters on the poster for us. But I mean, it must have been kind of confusing for those who have seen the posters of. There's one with both Roland and Walter, and there's one with just Roland, one with just Walter, and here comes this kid and steal the show. I mean, that must have been kind of confusing for those who don't know the story from the books.
Yeah.
So I think they did a lot of mistakes in this one, and well, I can only sum it up as a huge disappointment.
To me, it's more just it's a disappointment, but it's more of a meh kind of disappointment. I don't want to outright hate it like some people seem to be doing.
Yeah.
But I just wish they had even maybe set their scope smaller and dropped a lot of the portal jumping stuff and maybe just done something more focused on just Roland and McConaughey's character, as opposed to bringing in Jake into it in this first story. Because now that they've established this character, if they even decide to go ahead with it, it's going to be like a couple of years, and by then the guy's going to be in his 20s and he's way too old by that point. Like you've got to have the story structured so that it's, when you get to Jake, you've already established that yes, people want to see more of this story. So I think they made a mistake making, like you said, making Jake the main character like this. But I don't know what's going to happen. I just hope that in a couple of years, maybe if the TV series doesn't go, maybe they'll rejigger it and try it again. But right now, it's not looking positive, which is most unfortunate.
Yeah, I almost felt like I needed to go home and take a shower when I had seen it. I felt unclean, and I felt like, I have to go home and put on some Mr. Mercedes and stuff, or something like that, so I can feel good about it again. I don't know. It was such a disappointment when I walked out of the cinema. So
yeah, and I have to tip my hat to the internet fans. I do think their reactions might be a little too harsh, but today's audiences are pretty savvy, and they can tell when a movie company's trying to put one over on them. And I think people smelt that this movie was in trouble, and they've reacted accordingly. Whereas if you look at what's going on with the It movie, which everybody just is poised to love, but it's because the material that they're releasing is showing you that we've got something here that's worth seeing. Whereas with The Dark Tower, you never got that feeling.
Yeah.
And the more you saw of it, the more people became concerned. I mean, I remember when they started to first show the first pictures of Pennywise, people were making fun of it. But now everything that you watch, people say, oh man, that guy's so creepy looking. So if you've got a good product, people will pick up on that vibe. And I think they picked up from the movie company and the people involved with the movie that something fishy was going on, and it turned out to be right. So I have to, again, tip my hat off to the internet audience. I mean, I was just too close. I'm too close to this franchise to judge it impartially in any way, so I'm really hampered in that. I hate that feeling because it makes it difficult for you to give a proper review. But yeah, definitely just... probably one of the biggest disappointments of my movie-going experiences.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that in 19, which is a very important number in The Dark Tower, in 19 days from today when we record this, it premieres. So that's good news, and then we will feel good again, I hope.
Hope so. Sure hope so.
Yep.
I mean, again, you know. Yeah, because like you hear things Joe Hill saying, like this is one of the top 5 scariest movies of all time. Like you're trying to keep your feet on the ground, but comments like that make it pretty hard. So
yeah, and I think that with the It movie, that as we talked a little bit about in the news, that there's so much good things that we see from it and we hear about it and stuff like that. That the expectations could be so high that really no movie could live up to it. And I mean that kind of thing have crushed good movies before. That a movie is good, but you have the expectation that it will be even better, and that sometimes makes a good movie be not so good.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense. But
yeah,
so I'm really hoping that all of the movie will be as good as the stuff we have seen, and so far we have no reason to doubt that it won't be.
No, because everything from the sound design, from the music cues, from the clown laugh, it all works, right? Like it's just really creeping you out. And I guess we almost forgot to mention it, or maybe we did, and I don't remember. I think the most telling thing here is, and I wish studios would be on. Obviously, they don't want to hurt the chances of their products making money in that. But I wish they would be a little forthcoming at times too. But maybe now they will eventually. But the studio was, when there was these reports are coming out that there was trouble with the Dark Tower or first cuts, and the studio was saying, "Oh no, there's no issues. We're behind our director and we're working with him and all this stuff." But then you find out that they were in the editing room working on the cut together, and they can say what they want, but the fact that the director is not attached to any further Dark Tower projects says more than anything that the studio can put out as a marketing blurb. So I just wish they would come forward. I don't have no ill will. I obviously don't want to rain on anybody's reputation or whatnot, but sometimes it just wasn't a good fit, or the project was too big for Nick Arcel. But I think it's pretty obvious that if he's not coming back to do any further work on the Dark Tower, that there were some big problems there.
Yeah, and I think also that there can't just be one person responsible for this mess. So I think he's being some kind of a scapegoat as well.
Well, it's like the coach in the sports, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know how involved he was with the script and stuff like that, but the recutting and stuff. So I don't think he alone is responsible. Yeah, of course he has the responsible for the movie, but I think that a lot of people made a lot of mistakes making this one, and it as you say, would be very interesting to hear, and maybe we will down the line, a couple of years from now, hear from people who were involved with it and see what really happened behind the scenes with this movie.
Yeah. And we forgot to mention it also, and maybe we can do it in a follow-up podcast, is because I have the art of the Dark Tower book, and I assume you have it by now too, or?
No, actually I don't, but I will get it for the next podcast. I should have it, so we can talk about that one then. Yeah,
because if you look at that, it's like sets a totally different expectations for what kind of movie you're going to get. So, yeah. So, something obviously happened when they first canceled the movie or pushed the movie back from that February release date to this August release date. But, there's no two ways to cut it. It just wasn't the movie that this franchise deserved.
Nope.
I think that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah. And this is usually when we ask our listeners to comment on what they think. But I think we know pretty much what everyone thinks about this one. It's been all over the internet, and most people think that I think that the verdict is from about your standing point, that it's movie, and all the way down to mine that it's crap. So I think that somewhere there between those two is the truth. I haven't really heard anyone saying that. Well, there's people saying that it's a good movie, but I doubt that anyone would list this among their top 5 Stephen King movies.
Yeah, I've seen comments on Facebook. Some people, and film is subjective, and everybody has a different opinion. Some people say they love the movie. Hey, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But if you just go on the average, I think it's pretty obvious that most people did not like the movie. So somebody's always going to like something. So I'm happy for the people that found it was a good movie, but I just think that there's a much better movie that could be made about this material.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so that's it. Sorry to be such a bummer about that, guys. Hopefully when it comes out and some more Mr. Mercedes episodes, we'll be a little more happy and pumped about how those things have turned out. And there's still some good stuff coming down the pipe with Gerald's Game in 1922 and Sleeping Beauties and Joe Hill's Strange Weather. Strange Weather. So there's always stuff on the horizon, and there's another King book next year. So always stuff to look forward to.
Yep. There's definitely good. This is a good year to be a King fan, definitely, because there's a lot coming out, and not all can be good.
Nope.
Fortunately, something has to be bad as well. But I mean, if half of the stuff we get is good, I'd be happy with that. And I am actually going to be a little bit happy when the It movie has had its premiere, because there's been a lot of movie talk and a very little book talk these last 6 months or so.
Yes.
Obviously, because there's a lot of movie coming, and it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we are a big part of it as well. But I think that it will be. I reached the point where I want these movies to be out so I can see them, and we can definitely say what we think about them, and we can move on, because it's been quite a long time now that we've been talking about them, and I think we need to get back to talking a little bit more about books and stuff like that.
That's right. Well, we'll have Sleeping Beauties, so that'll be good.
Yep.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I think I've spoken my pieces.
Yes, I think we both have.
Yeah.
Next time we will be talking, as we mentioned, about the upcoming tour. Starts in September 26th and ends on October 6th, I think. 10 stops for Stephen and Owen. And also Lou and I are going to be going to Toronto, and I'm going to New York. And we have both been to this kind of stuff before, so we are going to talk a little bit about our experience and what happened when we attended earlier. So if anyone has any questions about the tour or anything like that, please send them in and we'll do our best to answer them. And we'll talk a little bit about what could be good to think about when we go to stuff like that and what to expect and everything like that.
Yep.
So look for that in the next podcast.
So until then,
stay scared. That's been too long.
Oh boy. Okay, let's try that again.
Yep.
until then.
Stay safe.
But
stay scared.
Ta-da.
Oh man.
Whoa, okay. Take care everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.